So for proper Git management, we would get into using branches. When you're doing your own little private project, there's no harm in really using just the master branch. In the lesson, I explained about at least creating a develop branch that you can use for kind of your active development, and then we'd be merging that over into master periodically to kind of show a set of changes being brought over. Other teams take it even further and use something called Gitflow, where they not only have the develop branch off of master, but also anytime they're adding a new little feature or a little set of things, they branch off of develop to create their own little feature branch. And then when they're ready, they merge that back into develop. And maybe you do that a bunch of times before you say, okay, we have a new release, and we're going to kind of merge now again the latest over from develop into master now. Develop continues, and so you can continue to do any number of other little features onto develop and do another feature, another release of develop into master later. But let's give you a sense of what that looks like in sort of the real world. So the idea is that the master branch, which we're looking at here for one of my freelance projects, is super clean. In fact, right now it has nothing in it. There's one commit where I put up the initial files, okay, because I haven't actually launched this site yet. But if we switch over to the develop branch, here you can see there have been 12 commits onto this branch, and I have the start of some more things going here. So if I look at these commits, they vary, but they typically represent little features that have been brought in. Okay, so then we have a bunch of different feature branches, and the features are numbered, in this case, off of issues. So in GitHub, you can basically create tasks, which they call issues, because often they relate to bugs or things like that. But you can queue this up with features that you want to add, so to kind of keep a list of features that you want to add, or bugs that you want to fix, or ideas. There's all kinds of ways to use this. But so for the one that I was working on, it was number 17, related to the About page. It's probably closed. So 17 for the About page. Yep, here it is. So when I finished it, I closed it, and that kind of took it out of the queue. But here you can see this was just some notes about what we wanted to put in here. And it keeps a log of all the different things that happened with this. So that's nice. Okay, so that's where with the features, what I have done is I have created a branch off of develop, named first with the issue number and then a little alias for whatever it was. Okay, so on that branch locally here, I can see the full history of commits related to this branch. So the most recent would be the ones that I did on this branch. But then we get back to a point where we see when I had branched off of develop onto here. So these are the things that happened on that main develop branch before I branched. And as we continue moving back and back and back and back, we get ultimately to where we initially branched off of master. And so you can kind of trace that whole history related to sort of this branch back to the beginning. So that's what all is there. But really these most recent 3 or 4 branches or commits are the things that I actually did. All right. So when I made those changes and I'm like, all right, I'm done with this task. Now I want to bring those changes into my develop branch. So that the develop branch can be up to date with that set of stuff. Remember, we're not bringing it into the full master branch yet. We're just bringing it into develop where we can kind of continue testing it before we release it on the master branch. So I would have pushed those changes up and then opened a pull request over here. So with those changes pushed up on that branch, you go to pull requests, and sometimes GitHub even shows you at the top here, hey, you pushed some changes to XYZ branch. Do you want to merge these? So you would just click new pull request, and it would walk you through that process. We'll look at that in just a second. So to give you a sense of what that looks like, I'm switching over here to a closed pull request. Here is the pull request I set up for that About Us fix. So I noted in the thing that it closes issue number 17 and number 30, where I also made some changes to the music ministry. Okay, and here are the commits that I made on that thread. Okay, so I could look at each one of those and see the files that were changed there. But what's really nice about this is, you know how when you're looking at a commit, you can see the changes that you made for that one commit? A pull request collects all of the stuff that's changed over several commits between when you last were on this branch and now merging into this branch again. So we were on develop and we branched off with this little about us branch. We made some commits. Hey, some stuff might have changed over on develop in the meantime. Regardless, now we're requesting to merge back in, and so GitHub is going to look at all the changes between where we started and where we ended up, accounting for anything that's changed in between. Super helpful, super helpful. Okay, so usually this is just a matter of showing the old stuff, the new stuff. So I can look down through and see all of the things that I've added. Okay, so this is the stuff for about.js, this is the stuff for index.js, ministries.js, okay? You can get a sense that this could be a little bit overwhelming. So a good practice is to make our pull requests and our feature branches as small and minor as possible. In some of the client work that I do, this might be changing one line of code. It's a whole lot easier to investigate and test that one line of code than it is to, oh my goodness, look at all of this stuff that we added. Sometimes it's inevitable, though, as you're working on a brand new site that you have large chunks of code to bring in. All right, so when we're all ready, we can merge that stuff in. Okay, now I would show you some other stuff from work, but the confidentiality of those makes that a little bit harder for me to show you. But another aspect here is that you can invite reviewers in, which I will ask you to do in this course. You'll click on reviewers and type in my username, Phil Shanley, and then you can add me as a reviewer, and I'll be able to come in and add comments, and eventually, hopefully, give you the thumbs up on your code. And then you can, down below, there'll be the option to merge those changes. So let's take a look at another repo. Let's say our the repo for this course that we're taking right now. This course website, I made some changes, and I realized that while I thought I had everything pushed up, there's one last little change here where I changed the package version number here. So I'm going to say increment version number so that I have a clean branch. Now in this case, I'm not working on the feature branch. I'm still working on the develop branch. A little bit more smooth and efficient for me on this project. But I made that commit. I'm pushing that up. Now I'm going to go to that repo over here in GitHub. And I can see that I pushed to develop recently. If I go to pull requests, it's like, hey, you pushed to develop recently. Would you like to bring and compare? Sure. All right, so the question is, I've made some changes on develop, but where do I want to put those? Well, right now, I'm ready to bring these into master and have a new deployment, which we'll talk about later. But in your case with a feature branch, or in another case with a feature branch, it may be a matter of taking your feature branch and bringing that into the develop branch. Okay, so it is very important to make sure that you are bringing stuff from your branch into the whichever branch you want to bring into. In this case, master is correct. And I have a convention for this where I name this by the version that I'm now releasing, because this is sort of a little more substantial than a typical PR. All right, now when I create this PR, again, I can see that there were 4 files that changed. Okay, I added a whole bunch of content, which you're looking at right now, as you watch this video at least. And I have some deployment stuff going, so it's also now kicked off this series of things. You may not see all of these, but this is something called continuous integration, which we'll talk about later too. But it does say, hey, wait a minute, you can't actually do this merge because there are some conflicts. What that means is, between the stuff that I changed over here and the stuff that's on the branch I'm merging into, GitHub says, hey, there's some stuff there that you need to look at and tell me which one you want, because I can't figure it out on my own. Okay, sometimes this means that other people merged and you have some conflicting things that you need to reconcile. Usually it just means that it's just a little bit more complicated than GitHub could figure out, and you just have to look at it yourself. So no big deal. We can resolve the conflicts right here. Notice that what it's doing is saying develop began here and ends here. And then from there on down is what's on master. So in this case, it's really simple. It's just that on master, we had an old version number in this file, and here we are on develop. We're changing that to 0.02. All we really have to do is delete the stuff we don't want, so that all that remains is the stuff that we do want. But I want to show you how to do that locally in GitHub desktop because it's really nice there too. Okay, so I want to leave. Here's my PR again, where it's showing those conflicts. So basically the idea is what we want to do is make sure that we have updated from master or merged in from master first so that we can have a chance to kind of comb through any of the stuff that happened on master and approve it before we push. So what we're basically going to do is add one more commit where instead of merging in right away, we're first going to just kind of sync up what's on master so that our branch is truly safe to merge into master. And that may feel a little confusing, and that's understandable. But here's what we're going to do. Here in GitHub Desktop, we're going to switch over to our master branch, and we're going to fetch origin, which makes sure that we bring down the latest from master, and then we can see here if there's anything locally that needs to change. But it looks like everything's still clean. So now that we know that we have the most recent version of master here on our computer, we're going to switch back over to develop, and where we had been working. And we're going to do this little tool up here called branch merge into current branch. Okay. In this case, since we're just bringing over master, we could also use update from master, but let's go through the process of using this one. So this is saying, what do we want to merge into develop? We want to merge master into develop. Okay. And it's warning us that we have one conflicted file. Okay. That's exactly what we want to solve. All right. So we are starting this merge, and look, it's the same thing you saw up there in GitHub, right? With the little dealios. Okay, so, but this one is saying, hey, you have these conflicts. What do you want to do? And the option here is to open it in Atom. Well, how nice. I would love to do that. So here we are, open in Atom, where you can see that it's saying, here is our changes and here is their changes. Their changes means the stuff that's on master. Our changes means the stuff that's here on our branch. So it's very likely that we want our changes to go in, but basically you can scroll down and it shows up in the mini map over here as well. See all those big highlights. You want to go through and find all those and just look at them and make sure, because it may be that some of the stuff needs the actual stuff that's on master. Maybe they have the most recent stuff and it's noticed as a conflict. Just because you put some new stuff around it and it's being like, hey, you got some extra lines here. Do you want this in? So you can do basically choose whichever one you want to use. Now, if it's a combination, you can even go in here and type in some new stuff. If you find that there's, hey, something down in the old, in the their changes section that you want to bring in. So just bring it into yours and then do use me. But in this case, super easy. Just do use me, save the file. And then if you switch back over to GitHub Desktop, it's showing we don't have any more conflicts. But if there was a whole list of files here, oh man, I've had many files in some PRs to fix. You can continue working through each one. Sometimes the fix is, hey, you deleted a file. Maybe you renamed it. It's going to come out as that you deleted a file and added a new one. Well, it might be like, hey, deleting an old file. Are you sure you want to do that? So you can drop the box down and say, yeah, I actually do want to delete it. Whatever the changes are, you want to work through them carefully and make sure that you're doing indeed what you want to do. Then we can just commit the merge, and now notice that it's got a merge of master indicated in our history here. So we just push those up, and we're going to go back to the browser where our PR is now nice and happy with a green checkbox. Notice that it did say, hey, you made some new changes since you last viewed this. So we had viewed it up to here with the increment version number, and now it's showing us that we made those changes too. One last thing, we can look over to our changed files and just review them and make sure it's all stuff that we do indeed want to change. If we find there's anything we want to fix, we can just fix it through a commit locally, push that back up, and we'll see the change reflected. Okay, so I'm going to wait for continuous integration to pass, but when it does, I will be ready to click the squash and merge button, which we will talk about more in a future video.